Steve.
Hello, Lisa.
Hey, so we're back for another casual conversation, and we're doing something a little different today. So, what we decided to do was to come up with 5 mystery questions that we will ask each other. So, neither one of us knows what the other will ask. And we have no idea what the context or what the questions are. And we're just going to play and go with it and co-create in the moment. I believe you're still game for this, right, Steve?
I am. I started overthinking as soon as you started introducing, but let's go. It's going to be fun one way or the other.
Okay, so let's dive in with question number 1. Here's my first question for you. When you're struggling with a decision and you're having a hard time finding an answer, what process do you take to ultimately make that decision? Like, what does that look like for you from I don't know to I know and I'm taking action?
I know what it doesn't look like, first of all. I'm not someone that often asks for advice or asks other people or asks a partner or friends. I think that I know a lot of people do that. For some reason, I'm definitely more of an internal looking person. So yeah, what do? I check in with my body a lot. So I suppose in the past I lived up here, and I know that that often didn't serve me. Trying to think of the best logical thing, and it all becomes a little bit too structured and a bit boring. I've learned over time to get still, get present, check in with the feeling rather than the sort of decision, and often that tends to point me somewhere. So that's one thing. So if that comes up with like a clearer, so it's like turn off all the noise. What do I feel really? Like if there was no limits, what would I do? Because the limits are up here, but the body and seems to know a bit more than the head. So that's one thing. Also, okay, if that doesn't work, I often write down the options, and I try and visualize them. I literally walk through what that would look like, whether it's an hour, a day, a week. I literally run through a whole scenario in my mind. I'll close my eyes and I'll go, right, that's the decision. What does that actually feel like day to day? What am I feeling? I'm really imagining it real. And how does that feel? And then I'll do that, and I might make some notes, and then I'll do the other scenario. I actually do this sometimes in coaching if I'm coaching with people, but do the other scenario. How does that feel? What comes up? Write some notes, and then reflect on those options, and that tends to come up with something. Yeah, and then at some point I have to make a decision, right? So then I'll just decide, and if I don't know, I'll probably flip a coin. I've never actually done that because one of those other two tends to point me in the right direction.
What happens when you connect with that stillness?
Yeah, I mean, it comes in the form of direction, like actual, yeah, it's not like a feeling as such. I mean, I guess it starts as a feeling, but it is actually, yeah, I think that's right for me. If there's no noise, that is actually what I want. Because sometimes your brain will try and convince you or sabotage you it's what you want, but actually when you check in deep down, you can say, oh no, this is what I actually want when there's less noise. So yeah, it tends to point you in an actual thing, gives you a message of some sort. And then yeah, but again, if that doesn't work, then sometimes you have to revert back to the two options, either writing them down, but for me, walking them through, like really visualizing walking through, because whatever choices we make in life about anything, even I do this even at dinner. This is really weird, right? But if I'm at dinner and I want to order 2 or 3 things off the menu, I actually imagine them arriving. I imagine it arriving, and I picture myself eating it, and I swear it works. I swear it works. People think I'm crazy, but it actually works. It helps me decide when I've visualized it arriving.
I'm going to be looking out for that next time.
I'm surprised you didn't notice when I was in Portugal when we last saw each other.
I didn't.
So my first question for you is, what do you think a lot? What do you think a lot but rarely say, and why?
I think I might think a lot I'm scared, or uh-oh, what will happen, or is this going to work? Like something around that type of statement. But I don't necessarily say it out loud because it's something that I'll think, but it doesn't stop me from taking action. So at some point in my life, I've decided that that voice isn't going to stop me. So, but that thought comes up often, like, oh, I'll have this idea to do something, and I'll think, why am I doing this? Like, what's the purpose of it, or something to that effect. And I don't voice it. I sometimes will journal about it, but often I don't. It's just something I've learned to watch and witness rather than listen to and engage with.
Okay. So these are thoughts that maybe those initial kind of almost like this, the sabotagey thoughts, but you've learned to move forward from them, right? Got it. So then, what about, is there anything on the same question? Is there anything that you think that isn't a sabotagey thought? It's a truth, but you rarely say it.
Oh, so one that I have felt is true since I was actually quite young is that I feel that I've this is where I get a little strange, I guess, or I feel like I'm being taken care of often, that there's forces that have my back, that there's forces that hold me. I just feel like my life has been quite a blessing, and I feel that there's like the universe. I don't have words for it, but things tend to work out for me. And my dad will often say, well, that's just how you look at life and less about what's actually happening. But for me, the way I experience it within my own being or existence is that there are forces that are holding me and are taking care of me, are the words that are coming. They're not words I would tend to use. Often you won't hear me saying someone's taking care of me, but that's how it feels. Those are the words that are coming to me. So that would be a positive thing that I have felt. I remember as a teenager, which often is not the time when you think these kind of things, but feeling that there was just something taking care of me over and beyond my parents, that just was guiding me, and that I felt kind of had my back, that things were gonna to work out.
That's why you always have such a glow about you. Maybe, but yeah, it sounds like it's your version of a guardian angel. Some people might call it a god to others, or spiritual connection. That's your thing. You've got something that you feel is with you, guiding you.
Yeah. What's your next depth of growth as you see it? What's your next edge to cross?
Again, I'm going to start with what I know it's not. I don't know why I'm going with this flow, but it seems to be what's coming. So it's definitely not information. I definitely don't need any more information in terms of courses, books, advice. I've done a lot of it. It's definitely something in the acting on the information and the feelings and that type of thing. So I guess it is about maybe rechecking in with my values and ensuring I'm really truly acting on them. I do a lot of values work with other people, and always championing people to sort of live in alignment with their values. But I bet you if I was to go back to mine now and look at where I was at, there will be areas where I'm nowhere near, like really almost like values on steroids. Am I really exploring the full range of some of my values? Probably not. It will be something, yeah, it'll be something around values and probably being my full potential. And I guess for me, that probably means maybe ramping up the way I serve others, help others, given that I've got big interest in personal development and people being their true selves and their most authentic, but just most confident selves. I feel like I could add a lot there if I really push myself to put myself out there in terms of helping others do that. I think I limit myself a little bit, but then again, we're here having these conversations, which is all part of that process, right? So I think it's probably that it's acting on my values and really driving forward with them. Practicing what I preach, I suppose. So, I mean, like one of my values is kind of like fun and variety, right? Also, two of those values are fun and variety. But, you know, I feel like there's a whole bigger range. Like when you say depth, there's so much more depth in fun and variety than what I probably experienced in life. You know, I've always wanted to do something way more like adventurous, whether it's travel or activities, or I see these people doing these crazy challenges to really kind of commit to some big challenge and feel the aliveness as part of that challenge, part of the planning for it, the doing of it. And I feel like I play a little bit small sometimes, and some of the things I do, it's like they're all great, but they're not. I don't think they push the limits of maybe who I am. I don't think I properly even have explored the degree of who I probably am or what I'm capable of. I think I sit in a bit of a safe zone sometimes. I know you do a lot of coaching in the world, a lot of great coaching. So I want to ask, what tool or activity do you use often in your coaching that has the biggest impact? Something that you come back to that you've just seen impacts people's lives that you work with?
So often I work with corporate leaders. And so in that world, we really value our head and our cognitive ability and the pros and cons of things. And so that analytical side is a great ally of ours, but it can really be a big hindrance for us as well, because we get looped in and engaged in the pros and cons, and it just keeps on going in circles and circles and circles. And so I often will do a visualization where we connect with our gut, with the center of action, or second brain, as people call it, and see what urges are coming from there. And then we do a visualization where we connect with our heart, center of empathy and compassion, and again, kind of look at what information is there from that perspective, from a perspective of empathy, of a bigger picture, of a greater purpose. And then we do go to the head, right? And often that one, funny enough, often when I'm working with these very senior executives, their head all of a sudden gets quiet in this exercise. So we do this visualization where they close their eyes and they connect, and I'm walking them through some questions to ask, and just really having them connect with that perspective, that wisdom, and see what comes up. And then we do a debrief of what came up and what are the takeaways. And often the head says, listen to your heart, or often the head will say, you don't need me in this. Like it's really interesting how these very analytically focused individuals all of a sudden go through this exercise. And when we connect with their head, the answer is, you've depended on me for way too long. And the richness of the things that they knew at a level that they were just second guessing in their mind comes up really clear. And I've used this exercise so often, especially when people are really stuck and they're very engaged in their cognitive thinking, and they're just going in loops. You often will notice someone arguing both sides, and they just keep on going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then you take them out of that and have them connect with these different centers, and it's so clear. It's like one statement, one word, one image that comes from these that means so much. So that's probably one of my most favorite, because it's unconventional in the business world, and it gives us an opportunity to talk a little bit about how our brain works and our thought process and all that kind of stuff, which I love.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting how it ties quite closely to one of the questions I answered earlier, right, about checking back in here, which I never did for years and years. I didn't even know to think to do that. And I'm sure it came from a lot of the personal development work, the coaching, skills, training, and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's if people have never tried it, they just think things are all up here, all the answers are up here. And what you're saying is taking them, it sounds like you're saying, taking them into the body, either into the body or through some visualization to connect to something outside of here, something deeper, and there lies maybe the guidance they need, and then they can come back to their brain having had that experience and be able to look at it from a different perspective, and therefore make a choice based on what they felt rather than what they're thinking.
I'm gonna add a little other piece to it too, because it's something that's come up a lot around teams and companies that are looking to engage a team at a different level or stage. And it's that we tend to look at these kind of skills as a way of looking at performance rather than human behavior and how we interact with each other. And when we work on what are the behaviors and the interactions within the team that will actually allow us to reach the revenue target, the things that hold us back, that is the part that companies don't tend to put as much focus on, and tend to be the real reason why some will reach their targets, some don't. Some have cultures that are productive and engaging, and some don't, right? And so having leaders look at, not only look at this one individual or this one individual, let's broaden the view, look at the team, and look at what do we need to be, what do we need to happen from a behavioral and an interaction perspective for the team, for the system, rather than this person is performing, this person isn't. Because we know that often when we address that, the individuals work themselves out. And sometimes they don't, we have to deal with that. But often we don't look here. We look at, this one's a high achiever, this one's not, this one, and we have to look at a team perspective. So that's been a big thing, helping companies work through what are the behaviors that you want to be incenting and the interactions between employees that you want to be incenting, and how do you operationalize values? How do you operationalize those things that you say are important and then nobody ever talks about?
Yeah, no, I love that. And I see it so often in the corporate environments. People do look at the individuals in a team, the people that are deemed to be not performing or doing something, but then it's like, well, what is the environment? How is the environment leading to that behavior, and why? And it's just you're almost treating the team as a person in itself, right? Almost looking at how is that as a person in itself, what needs to change within that rather than at the individual level, which is great. Thank you for the extra tip. That was an extra part too.
So if you could leave the next generation with just one statement, we'll pretend that we didn't actually document every second of our lives on social media, and that we can only leave them with this one statement that would help them live better lives. What would that statement be?
I almost want to say, don't be fooled into thinking it's all about you, but that sounds a bit not quite exactly what I mean, but it's something around, like truly learn, when you truly realize it's not all about you or the identity that you make up, that's where the fulfillment lives. That's where the true fulfillment and the aliveness comes. The reason I say that is because I think a lot of people, especially in this day and age, grow up, especially nowadays with social media, like with this just living in alignment with an identity or a false sense of identity that you're trying to uphold or increase. You're either trying to maintain an identity, whether it's an identity based on your work, your looks, or any other thing, or your status, or you're trying to improve it, right, for the sake of being better. I think that just drives so much of how we live our whole lives. A lot of the fears all relate to that. And I think when you can try and realize that, try and shift the perspective away from this false sense of identity and just actually be fully present in the here and now and the facts of the here and now, and focus more on the connection, i.e. the connection to yourself, like your real self, not this false identity, but your real self, your values, your humanity, and also connection to others and their values and their humanity, I think you would experience a whole different world.
Yes, yes, yes. I love everything you said.